Okay, good afternoon guys, welcome back. First time viewers, welcome as well, I suppose. Today what we're doing is getting under the NT Pajero 2009 model. This is a 3.2 diesel, by the way, in case anybody's curious. What we're looking to do is get under here and remove the factory plates, and we're going to replace these with some booze bash plates. So you can see the standard affair under here. Not sure whether you can hear from that, but they're reasonably thin, certainly not 3 to 4 mil of the booze bash plates. And you can see that only sort of, covers the sump there as well. So we've got a full set all the way back to the transfer case, and then we've also got the rear bumper guard there as well, which is the one I'm most interested in fitting actually. I was going to approach that one first, but we're not. We'll get that last, and we'll see how we go. Now I'm just having a look here. It's actually looking a lot like I'm going to have to remove the nudge bar to get at this, I'm thinking, because that bolt certainly seems to go all the way through. So whether I'm going to have the ability to just undo that and drop that a little bit, or whether the bar has to come off, that will be a bit of a pain in the ass if that is the case. But I guess we shall find out, because we've got one up this side as well, and the one over here. That being said, it's probably not a bad thing. I wanted to make some adjustments to the antennas and stuff, and to remove this nudge bar, it is only 4 bolts. You've got the one here, the one here, here, and here either side of the number plate. I am also looking at adding a light bar, which will sit just above this, on this bar here. But that's going to cover up the number plate, so I actually need to relocate the number plate down here. So whether we'll get that done today or not, I don't know. But for now, it's going to pose a bit of an issue, because everything's wired up to that nudge bar, and if we're going to have to take some of this off, might be a bit of a challenge. Anyway, no point sitting around talking about it. Let's get stuck in. In the hope of expediting everything today and making the job just a little bit quicker, pull out the compressor, the rattle gun. Hopefully we shouldn't need that, although I used to use that to put the plates on and off the deleter. Just makes things that much easier. But I've got the little air ratchet as well. Hopefully that's going to be all the pressure that's going to be required, and we might as well get stuck into it. The good news is we've just removed those bolts, and you can see here those are basically just spacers. So with those two removed, I think you can see how much movement I'm getting there in that nudge bar. So we can pull that forward, just drop those little aluminium spacers out, and then we'll be able to take this out as well. There we go, beautiful. Okay, so we might actually be at a halt before we get started. I think you can reuse the bolts. At least I'm hoping you don't have to do that, because I'm actually missing one here. The rear of this intercooler bash plate, so the front one basically. I'm missing a bolt here, so I believe that the boxes or the packaging from Booze does have some rattles in it. So whether that's been a rattle, I haven't really heard anything under here, but that'll be interesting. So I might just race over and have a look at the Booze package, and we'll see whether there's some bolts in there and whether that's going to get us out of trouble before we start pulling all this off, find where we're bolt short. This is all of the the full set out anyway, which is the 3 plates. So we've got an intercooler at the front. This is actually sump, and this is transfer case and transmission. So this one actually turns sideways, so it goes lengthways down the centre of the vehicle. That one I guess kind of sits like that, and obviously we know how that one goes at the front. Now as far as how they've been received, no issues, keeping in mind that these are bash plates. They're going to go under the vehicle and be scratched to shit. There's a few little scratches and stuff on them here and there, but nothing to worry about considering the general purpose. So I guess there's a look at the thickness, 3 mil. I've got no reason to doubt that. and you can see the cuts for airflow. So I'd be interested to see how that goes. What I am actually interested is when I move that number plate, get rid of that number plate out of the way, it's actually taking up nearly half of that airflow at the front, coming through to the intercooler and the radiator, etc. So I was going to see if there's some improvement there when I drop that down. But there we go. So that's the thickness here. Obviously you can hear nice and solid. Wouldn't say a lot of weight. I'd probably only call this, I'd say that's sub 10 kilo. This is the rear plate, and again you can see the thickness there. All seems fairly consistent across the board as far as thickness goes. I'm wondering whether I should paint these black, but again, we're going to be just scratching the shit out of these anyway. And again, all the bends look neat. Don't look to be any sort of structural stresses or any cracks or anything like that in the middle from where it's been bent. Mounting holes, not sure whether we need all of those or just a couple of those. Anyway, there we go. So we did have some bolts and luckily some instructions. Now me and the dog were just checking this out as we pulled off the sump guard. I tell you, now I've just pulled off the sump guard. Obviously the front intercooler guard, I suppose, is like a very thin metal, but the one behind that, which is effectively the sump guard, is that's plastic. I didn't actually realise it was plastic. I thought it was the same material as what we had at the front, but it is not. So we'll be glad to be getting rid of that. That will be offering no protection at all. So we'll throw that off to the side, and we'll get started on getting these plates. So there you can see the intercooler hanging down there, nice and low, which is where we don't really want it. I guess one of the benefits of the IFS suspension is we don't have any pumpkins hanging down the bottom there. So we've got pretty much a straight through runner clearance, which will be getting improved in a few days once we add that suspension on. So we can see it's reasonably tidy. Obviously it's a bit dirty, that's what it's meant to be, but everything seems to be in pretty good condition under here. Intercooler's had a few fins bent. Probably could have done some sort of flush or something while we're under here, it doesn't matter. Suspension on the other side, that's the driver's side. Everything looks pretty clean, pretty clear. So literally just take these bolts out here, drop the spacers out. You can leave that nudge bar on. Two more sort of about, I don't know, here and here, and then two more at the back. So really you've only got the 6 bolts there, and we can get stuck in and start fitting these puppies up. Now, probably not going to get too much instruction while it's underway, because obviously the plates are going to be reasonably heavy. I'm managing them on my own, on my back, and trying to get them bolted in. If it's anything like the Deluca plates, it's a little bit of a balancing act. Not too difficult on your own, but just need both hands, and there you go. The only other recommendation I can make is while you're working under a car, make sure you've got a set of safety glasses, because you get lots of dirt and shit that's going to fall off and it's going to come downwards, and you're down there, come straight in your face. So grab yourself a set of safety glasses, just some clear ones, and you won't regret that. One piece of advice, I guess, when doing the intercooler bash plate here at the front one, basically, with the nudge bar, and particularly if you've got the nudge bar, if you don't have any sort of bar at the front, it's not going to be an issue, or I'm not sure where the ball bars actually mount. But because you've got to go back with this sort of spacer type scenario, same as what we pulled off the front one, off the original factory, trying to hold that up with one hand, getting the spacer up under here, and then pulling on the nudge bar to get that lined up, pain in the arse. Don't do it. I fought with it for about 5 minutes. Get under here, put your 2 rear bolts in, and then that'll support the weight of the plate, and then you can get in here and work, obviously with 2 hands rather than having to work on that. Because I'm not sure how strong your shoulders are, but they wear out pretty quick trying to hold it laterally, and hold that up and then move with the right hand. So there you go. Put the back ones in first, then worry about messing about with these front. So that's the front ones in. You can pretty much see the spacers the same as we remove those, holding on the front. Again, start at the back of the intercooler, pop the 2 bolts in here, You don't have to do them up tight, reasonably snug to start with though, and that'll hold the weight of that front plate, and you can get up and mess about with those. Pain in the ass, just a saying, because to get that all lined up and to go back in the original hole. Once you've done that, you can tighten those front ones up a little bit to keep it a bit firmer. Knock these back ones off a bit, because this next guard has to slot in up over the top of that, and then it'll fit up there. So if you've got that tight, you won't have the movement to get that in. Another one that side, and at the back here and here, and that profile there looks excellent as far as a fit. There you go, a lot more solid than the originals obviously, and that's not going anywhere, so that's pretty nice. Right, let's get back to the transfer case, etc., and we'll get that one stuck up there. Now apparently I think I'm gonna use these 2 bolts here, and they come with some they call them mounting clamps, just a couple of pieces of steel, so we need to put the bolts through at the back there. This goes on top of the plate, and then a nut comes down and clamps it. I think we're clamping into that cross member there. We'll figure it out once we get back there and we mount it up. And it does say for the NT, which is what we've got, I think we're using the rearmost bolt holes, but we'll obviously see what that's going to line up with there. Metal, so I have to figure out whether it's going to go that way or that way. So your bolt, spring washer through the plate, through your clamp, piece of metal, washer, and nut on the top, and effectively that's going to hook on the back of here, in here, and then we're going to clamp it up and tighten it up. And obviously we've got these 2 holes here at the front, as per the original stuff, so we'll get that sorted out and we'll have a go now. Just FYI, as far as fitting this rear of this plate, so this is the hole here that we're going to use for the NT. I've had to put these with the short section like that to line up with that hole. If we go long ways towards the front, it doesn't fit and it pushes that hole back. So that may vary depending on model, but for the NT, you want the shorter piece doing the clamping on that cross member there. It might be tight, but there's always room for a dog. Alright, so here we go. That's all the plates fitted. So we're still laying underneath the car, obviously, albeit that it's on the ramps. That's the bolts. Not sure whether you can see the clamping there on the back. We'll find out when we get out. If you can see how they clamp there on that rail. And again, those rear bolt holes for the NT. Little wings, which are good. A little bit of extra protection there. Just sump guard. And we'll give it a look once we get outside. And obviously intercooler there at front. Okay, so that's the plates for the front. Now it looks a lot cleaner here, I think, than the other ones, the originals, but it really is begging for a nice set of recovery hooks there at the front. But we won't go there. Right back there, way at the back of the car. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what you're actually looking at when you get the boost plates, and as per instruction manuals and the so-called kit, basically it'll just give you an idea of what you're receiving in the kit itself. So the individual bash plates seem to come as kits and will have their own individual instructions. So it's basically saying you're going to have one bash plate, that's that puppy there. We're going to have one brace, which is this here, a couple of 8mm bolts, you know, washers and spring washers. So it's very detailed on what it tells you you're actually going to get. And then 2 10mm bolts and 2 10mm washers. You can follow the instructions there, all pretty easy. I'm just going to get in. Now we've flipped the car around to do the rear one. It's going to make the access to the transfer case a little bit easier. And then we'll show you once we've got that fitted, and we'll get stuck into that rear one as well. Okay, so now in relation to the transfer case cover, it has basically suggested we needed to undo this plate, so I've had to back these off for the next one along, for the transmission. And it says that to take your 10mm bolts, so that's your thicker bolts, And it says there's going to be a couple of holes in the bottom of the floor which are pre-threaded, luckily enough, to take the 10mm bolts. And if you have looked just up here, so here's your transfer case. Interesting, don't know what that is, but there's your two holes there that are going to take your 10mm bolts. So if you're looking for those and you can't find them, that's them up there. So we've got that bracket up there, and that's going to become the mounting bolts for the rear of the transfer case. You can see hopefully just here and here, but the challenge is going to be those bolts are now up there, and I don't know how we're getting up there to tighten those. You can see where they are. Just give you a little bit of perspective when I pull back. So I'm not sure. I think we're going to need to get a ratchet and come at it from this angle, and possibly give us a little bit of room to move from the front of the car. So once I figure that out, I don't think I've got a ratchet extension that's going to fit straight up, and if you want to go straight up, that thing that I touched on earlier is actually right in the way. Fantastic. So we'll see how we go. Might see if I can tighten this up first, actually. I just put a little bit of tension on it. Anyway, we'll figure out how to get that done in a sec. Okay, now you can have a bit of fun with this. So there's the transmission guard, and here's the transfer case. Now what you need to do, hopefully you can see that, is this is the clamp that goes under the cross member. Then you go under that cross member. That's where you want to slide your transfer case guard in, and then your transmission guard is under that. So have fun with that. Pain in the ass, but obviously it's doable. It took me a couple of minutes, but just figured out the right technique, how to hold it. So what I did was sort of loosen them both right off. Got one side sort of just under, balancing it with the knee, this sort of thing, doing this sort of stuff with the hand. Got one side under, and then come around the other side and worked on that from there. So that's in. I've still got to figure out how to get these bolts, these 10mm bolts that go into the floor, tightened. I've tried to do a few different things, not even getting close. So no idea at this point. Come back to you shortly. To give you an idea how I got those bolts tightened up, a short extension, the socket, long extension, and I was able to get onto that very precariously. I'm not super happy about the amount of tension I've been able to put on that because it's not been straight, but that gives you an idea there. The rear one, if you come in over the top up here, I think you can see where my arm is, over the side of the transfer case guard, and you can get onto that. Hopefully you can see that there, and you can put about 1/8 of a turn. I think 1/4 be generous each time you have a go at that, and you will eventually get it. What I actually did was come at it from this side, so put this hand up here, the right hand up the other side, and was able to sort of get fingers on the bolt and tighten it up by hand, because you obviously don't want to be wasting your time going 1/8 of a turn to get tension on it when it can just screw in by hand. So get as far as you can by hand, and then come at it with the bolts. With the spanners. So I've just got to tighten those up, and then I think we're actually done for underneath the car. So we've already shown you a look at the front ones when they were done, so I'm pretty happy with those. And this is the transfer case here, and you can see those mounting bolts there. So as you can see, like I said originally, we had to have the mounting clamps with the short piece to the front, because if we had the long piece it was going to be too long. So that's it there, and we'll tighten those up there as well. Okay, so we're down to the last one, which is just the rear bumper guard. I'm going to follow the instructions here because we've got some mounting brackets here. This one's a D, which used to be a P, so I have to assume that's D for driver's side. And I think we're looking at a P there for passenger side. So I think we're going to go something like this. Not real sure. I'm not real sure what that's actually mounting to up there. Actually, I think we can see what we're going on to. I think we're going on to the factory bar bolts, I think. So this is going to be interesting. Anyway, I'm going to have a bit of a read here, and I'll come back to you when I've figured it out and I know what I'm doing. Okay, now if I had just paid attention to page 2, there we go, there's our image. And so I was right, we are going to be undoing those tow bar bolts. So it does say just to loosen this one off, loosen the rear one off, because we're going to slide onto that with that rear section. But we do need to fully remove the front one. So this rear bumper is proving to be a bit more of a challenge, even more so than the transfer case. The good news is, over on that side, on the driver's side, the bolts are fairly easy to get to. I've got a breaker bar here, which you can see that in the light, which is good for leverage, so you can get that on there. The problem you've got is you can get onto them up here with the breaker bar, but you can't really get any leverage on it because the exhaust is in the way. If you go that way, you've got the I don't know, the rear cargo area, the third row seat. So ultimately it'd be nice to pull that exhaust can off that hanger and see whether that'll work. We don't want to do that though. So I'm going to keep fiddling with this. The problem you've got is, if you're just going to use a regular socket ratchet, with all that extra extension on there to get it up there, you just can't get the right amount of torque on it. So it's proven to be a pain in the ass. So that one there is probably going to be the easier one, believe it or not, because then you've got the other one up there. I'm not sure whether we've got that on there, but there's one right at the rear, and there's just, I've tried the rattle gun, but unfortunately the compressor that I've got is not real big, so it's not applying a lot of pressure. I'm using this small hose. Maybe if I go and swap over to the larger hose, might see some improvements there. Ultimately, I think I'm going to have to get to them with the breaker bar, so I've just got to try and figure out how to do that at this stage. I probably can use some sort of combination of extension, but these aren't the greatest. These are not an expensive set, they're just a super cheap set, and I have torqued just these and just had them split. Back to report some good news. We've managed to get that front bolt out, get those undone. Again, the driver's side, piece of piss. This side though, hard, but what I ended up doing was using the breaker bar. I don't know, 1.5 foot or something, I suppose, maybe a foot, 12 inch, yeah, probably 30 cm, better foot long. You can go obviously longer, it'll allow you to get a bit more torsion on it. A 3-inch extension, and then this is just a socket out of the air compressor kit, so for the air tool, so it's a little bit longer than your normal socket, so you might need to go a 5-inch extension or something like that. That allowed me to get the right amount of torque on it without worrying about, you know, it levering or something like that, or sort of bending off and buggering the bolt, and that came out. Once I was able to break them, they come out pretty easy. So there is also another big bolt, not sure if you can see that, just up there somewhere, and another one on that side, so you can loosen these, and it hasn't seemed to have shifted at all, even though I've taken those front bolts out and then loosened these back ones off, so you can be confident that's just going to sit there without levering down, because obviously those front ones are really tight. So we'll go about putting this back one together and getting it on, and yeah, we're getting close. I've got this rear one on. Now I wanted to point out a few things, and you'll see this in the instructions. The actual plate goes to the outside of these brackets, and then what you'll see is we've got these, I think they're 17mm or something like that, these bolts that need to go through from either side, and they do have the lock nuts on there. Reasonably easy to access over that side, but everything is compounded because I guess the space and stuff you've got to work over here. So again, we're going to need to somehow get a spanner up in here to attach to those lock nuts, and then we can work these. Now one thing they did suggest was that you might need to move your trailer plug onto the top, which I'd already done, because what I actually found was that was the lowest point. It was actually hanging down, so when I'd done a little bit of off-road, just you know, dropping down a bit of a drop off, the trailer plug was the lowest point, and it was turning it and shifting it and threatening to rip it off. I ain't going to rewire a new one anyway, but for the sake of this, I don't think it would make too much difference whether it was on top or bottom. The only issue you'd have is maybe the wires, but you can see that's a good fit. That's the standard Mitsubishi hitch, and it comes up pretty good. Not too bad on this side. I suppose a little bit of an area on that side where you could become a scoop, but I think this sorts the majority of the issue out here. Now I am glad I fitted this first, because I am going to be drilling through the bottom of the third row seat here to fit the mounting bracket and etc. for the auxiliary battery. So I'm glad that I fitted this, so I didn't go drilling through and then finding out that I was going to be behind this. Okay guys, and that is that. That's done. So that's the rear bumper guard on, and I quite like the look of that. Makes it look a little bit tougher. No clearance issues in regards to the hitch. That'd be the factory one. Anything else, you're on your own. Can't advise there. Those bolts up in there, pain in the ass. Getting those ones tightened up, not too bad. But the right hand side, the driver's side, is a piece of cake. Really, really easy. And then obviously the transfer case one, you saw the issues we had there. Again, this is nothing to do with booze manufacturing or anything like that. It's just the fitment process, and it's just what's required, so no concerns there. Based on fitment and how everything just lined up real easy and went together no problems, and having another look underneath, I do like the idea of maybe getting a fuel tank guard, which is where the dog's heading to right now. Just there, buddy, above your head. Yeah, good work. So that's the fuel tank there, so I think I would like to get a guard for that as well. Anything else is not too bad. But yeah, really happy with the fitment. Delivery, spot on. Like I said, it was a few days from ordering. I think it was about 2 or 3 days from ordering to have them on my doorstep, and it's just taken me till now to get that fitted. And just in case anybody's wondering why you'd want to put a rear bumper guard on the Pajero, you can see that this is the underside of the rear bumper here, and the plastic just hangs down here like this, so it effectively becomes just a big sand scoop. And there's a number of images and whatever of people who have scooped this and pretty much taken this whole rear section off. So I think these are a really good compromise between price and protection, which is pretty much what I need. I don't do anything hardcore. This is my daily driver, but it is going to be nice to know that you can get your daily driver home in the event that you want to go and do a few trails and put it over a few rough things, but then come home at the end of the day, still be able to drive it to work on Monday. So thanks to Booze Bash Plates for supplying these, getting them to me so quick, and for supplying an awesome product. Whew, so that's it guys. Just a few learnings I guess whilst I'm back here in the shade. Make sure you've got I guess a breaker bar for getting at these bolts here at the back, keeping in mind that you're going to be removing bolts that may have been there for God knows how long, and they may be on there. Probably wouldn't hurt you to go around and give them all a squirt of WD-40 before you start, but for the most part they all come off pretty easy. It's only what, an 8-year-old car, give or take. So a breaker bar definitely for this corner. Have yourself some extensions just in case. This side was all okay, and from underneath, look, if you can get an extra pair of hands, somebody that's happy to crawl under the car with you, if you've got a young fella or something like that, get him under there with you and get him working on it. Just to hold a few things in place will just make things that much easier. That being said, look, it can be a one-man job. I've done that. Give yourself at least a couple of hours, especially if you're going to be messing around with this back one. The front ones, you know, half an hour, realistically, taking your time, you know, if you haven't done this sort of thing before. And again, providing you've got the right tools. If you haven't got the right tools, you know, you're really going to struggle, I think, with these ones. And again, that's nothing to do with Booze Bash Plates. It wouldn't matter which bash plates you got for this. It's just the location of some of the bolts and where you've got to get your hands and the tools. Eyewear, obviously, while you're under there, you don't want shit falling in your face. And I guess take your time. Just, you know, go easy. The transfer case, obviously that was difficult to get hands up to. You're going to have to finagle that one, and you know, if you've got big hands, you might struggle there.
and those spaces at the front, as far as the nudge bar goes, that was a little bit challenging there as well. So yeah, look, at the end of the day, take your time. It can be done one man, provided you can get all those bolts out, and it's yeah, at the end of the day, good result for the price. Look, it was $415 for the front set, and I think it was about $220 or something for this back one, so less than $650 all delivered. That come to Newcastle here in Australia. Yeah, great result, really happy with that, and can't wait to see how it looks once we get that 2-inch suspension lift done in about 4 days. And we'll talk again real soon. Cheers guys.